What's going on with Brexit? It's a question that has haunted Europe for years, leaving politicians stumbling through endless debates while citizens scratch their heads in bewilderment. Welcome to Explain Simply channel, where complex topics become crystal clear and easy to understand. But step back from the political chaos at ground level, and something remarkable emerges from the fog of confusion, a mathematical certainty as elegant as it is devastating. The impossible trinity. Picture this: a geometric puzzle where every solution creates a new problem, where every door opened slams another shut. This isn't just political theater. It's a real-world demonstration of how geography can become destiny, how history can trap the present, and how three simple principles can paralyze an entire nation. Let's start with the players on this complex chessboard. The United Kingdom, that's England, Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland, forms one crucial piece. But here's where it gets interesting. Northern Ireland shares the island of Ireland with the Republic of Ireland, a completely separate country. Think of it as one island, two nations, with centuries of complicated history flowing between them like an underground river. Before Brexit, the European Union's invisible wall, a metaphor for the overlapping circles of institutions, regulations, and agreements, encircled them all. Trade flowed freely, people moved without passports, and borders existed mainly on maps. The EU had created something unprecedented in European history, a continent where ancient enemies had become economic partners, where walls built over centuries had quietly dissolved. But then came Brexit, Britain's desire to step outside this circle, to build her own walls separate from the EU, to become like any other independent country. Maximum Brexit, they called it. Clean, simple, sovereign. What could possibly go wrong? Maximum Brexit represents the dream that captivated millions. Britain standing tall and independent, master of her own destiny once again. Picture the United Kingdom surrounded by her own sovereign wall, controlling every aspect of trade, immigration, and law. No more Brussels bureaucrats dictating fishing quotas. No more European court overruling British judges. No more sending billions to subsidize foreign farmers. Just Britain, proud and free. This vision demands something seemingly simple: a proper border. Real countries have real borders, after all. Customs posts, passport checks, the full sovereignty package. And since the UK is mostly an island, this should be straightforward, except for one tiny geographical hiccup that would unleash decades of suppressed historical trauma. Following the border of maximum Brexit, that wall would slice straight across the island of Ireland, separating the Republic of Ireland from Northern Ireland with the same concrete certainty that once divided Berlin. Suddenly, farmers would need passports to check their cattle in the next field. Families would queue at customs to visit their grandmothers. Workers would face border guards on their morning commute. But here's where geography collides violently with history. There used to be exactly such a wall between the two Irelands, not just customs posts, but watchtowers, armed patrols, and coils of razor wire. It was a border measured not in miles, but in blood, where smugglers and soldiers played deadly games of cat and mouse, where the wrong accent in the wrong place could be a death sentence. For 30 years, this border was synonymous with violence, terror, and heartbreak. Car bombs exploded in city centers, snipers haunted country roads, and ordinary people lived in fear. The Irish called it the Troubles, a masterpiece of understatement for what was really a low-intensity civil war that killed over 3,500 people and wounded tens of thousands more. Then came Good Friday, 1998. Not just any Friday, but a very good Friday indeed. After decades of bloodshed, exhausted negotiators from Ireland, the UK, and Northern Ireland's warring communities achieved what many thought impossible: peace. The Good Friday Agreement didn't just end the violence. It performed a kind of political magic trick, making the border between the two Irelands virtually disappear. No more checkpoints. No more searches. No more fear. Families reunited across an invisible line. Businesses flourished as goods moved freely. A generation grew up never knowing the terror their parents had endured. The border became what borders should be in a civilized world: a line on a map, not a scar across a landscape. This wasn't just a peace treaty. It was a sacred promise written in the blood of those who had died. Never again would there be a hard border between Ireland and Northern Ireland. Full stop. No exceptions. No circumstances that could justify returning to the bad old days. The British government promised it. The Irish government promised it. Even the European Union, recognizing the fragility of this hard-won peace, made it a cornerstone of any Brexit negotiation. When Brexit architects spoke of taking back control, they discovered that some controls had been deliberately, permanently surrendered for something far more valuable: human life. The moment anyone suggested reviving border infrastructure between the Irelands, voices across the political spectrum rose in unison. Super no bueno. Not just politically unacceptable, morally unthinkable. But this creates a maddening paradox. How do you have maximum Brexit, complete separation from the EU, when part of your country shares a land border with an EU member? How do you control your borders when controlling one particular border might restart a conflict that claimed thousands of lives? The answer seemed obvious. Move the border somewhere else. If you can't put the wall across Ireland, why not put it in the Irish Sea? Brilliant compromise. The United Kingdom marches boldly out of the European Union, but not everyone makes it across the finish line. Northern Ireland stays behind, sort of, on the EU side of the wall, while still technically being part of the UK. Picture this. Northern Ireland becomes a bridge between two worlds, 1 foot in the UK, 1 foot in the EU. European regulations flow through like whispers, making Britain's Brexit rather less than maximum. The EU even sweetens the deal, suggesting that if Northern Ireland ever wants to let go completely and unite with Ireland, well, that's perfectly fine with Brussels. Ain't no thing, girl. But for Northern Ireland, this solution is an identity crisis wrapped in a constitutional nightmare. She sits on Ireland but thinks of herself as British, though also Irish, potentially becoming the last part of the UK still in the EU, while simultaneously holding the right to leave the UK and join Ireland if she ever votes to do so. It's enough to give anyone a headache. For the United Kingdom, this arrangement creates something no nation wants to contemplate: a wall running through its own territory. Imagine if Texas needed a passport to trade with Oklahoma, or if California had different currency than Nevada. The very concept of a nation-state assumes internal unity, seamless movement of goods, people, and ideas across domestic territory. No nation voluntarily creates external borders through internal space. It violates the fundamental principle of sovereignty, that within your borders, you are master. An internal customs border means you're not really one country anymore. You're a confederation of separate economic zones, held together by sentiment and constitutional paperwork. Yet this is exactly what the Irish Sea solution demands, treating Northern Ireland differently from the rest of the UK, creating paperwork and inspections for goods moving from Belfast to Birmingham, making some UK citizens more European than others. And there it is, the impossible trinity in all its geometric perfection. 3 simple, reasonable demands that cannot coexist in the same universe. Maximum Brexit, no Irish border, and no internal UK borders. Pick any two, and the third becomes impossible. Want complete independence from the EU? You'll need a border somewhere. Want to preserve Irish peace? That border can't cross Ireland. Want to maintain UK unity? That border can't run through the Irish Sea. It's not a matter of political will or negotiating skill. It's mathematics. It's geography. It's the immutable law that you cannot be in 2 places at once, cannot have a border that both exists and doesn't exist, cannot be simultaneously inside and outside the same circle. For years, British politicians performed elaborate dances around this trinity, promising voters they could have all 3. We'll negotiate a special deal, they declared. We'll find a technological solution. We'll make it work somehow. But geometry doesn't care about campaign promises, and borders don't bend to political wishes. Eventually, reality intruded. The UK chose a temporary solution, the Northern Ireland Protocol, kicking the constitutional can down the road, creating a border in the Irish Sea that everyone pretended was just a temporary administrative arrangement. Northern Ireland found herself caught between worlds, neither fully in nor fully out, a living embodiment of unresolved contradictions. But temporary solutions have a way of becoming permanent. As politicians discovered, there's nothing quite as enduring as a measure designed to be short-term. The protocol became the new normal, satisfying no one completely, but preventing the return of violence. The impossible trinity remains unsolved because it cannot be solved. Sometimes, political problems don't have perfect answers. Sometimes, geography and history conspire to create puzzles where every solution creates new problems. Sometimes, the best you can do is choose which imperfection you can live with. Brexit taught the world a profound lesson. In politics, as in geometry, you cannot always have everything you want. The triangle of impossibility stands as a monument to the limits of political ambition, a reminder that even the mightiest nations cannot escape the constraints of mathematics, geography, and history. Like and subscribe for more deep dives into the impossible puzzles of our modern world.